Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Better Together, the podcast sharing real stories from founders and business leaders navigating the true journey of entrepreneurship. We talk about the risks, the pivots, the pressure, and the growth that comes with building something of your own. I'm your host, Shawn Sundsvold, joined by my partner in business and in life, Kelly Sundsvold. Today, we're joined by Tiffany Deans. She is an HR strategist specializing in organizational development, employee relations, compliance, and culture building. She is the founder of Grounding Work LLC, and after more than 20 years in human resources, including leadership experience in the federal sector, Tiffany understood how organizations succeed from the inside out. But instead of staying in a stable, established career, she stepped into entrepreneurship and became what she calls an accidental CEO. What makes her story especially powerful is she wrapped up her very first year in business just as COVID broke the world. In this episode, Tiffany shares what that year taught her about resilience, client alignment, and building a business on strong, people-centered foundations. If you're leading through uncertainty or growing into a role you never expected, this conversation will definitely resonate. Tiffany, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Shawn. I am so thrilled to be here with
Yeah, our
both
first
you and Kelly.
conversation, it was
Yeah,
so fun,
it
and
was.
I think this will be a really good conversation today.
Yeah.
Let's start, take us back to the beginning. What was that early career path, and how did you find your way into HR?
Yeah. So early on, like 20 years ago, I had an internship in an HR office. And again, it was nothing that I grew up and said, hey, I want to be in HR. It was an internship. It was paid. I said, cool, like, I need something
Yeah.
to do this summer. I ended up really liking it. I really enjoyed it. I always knew I wanted to help people in whatever career path that I chose. And HR was a thing and it stuck and I really enjoyed it. And so from then on, I found roles in different organizations that were HR, and I was super gung ho about it, loved it. I did a bulk of my HR career in the federal space. So I worked for the federal government, and I worked at a couple of different agencies. So I was able to really learn a lot about HR and grow within in the federal government, which was awesome.
Yeah.
It's really good. That's really good. It's interesting, HR is one of those things that those departments that, employees love and hate, but is very,
Oh yeah.
very needed.
Oh yeah.
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 So you've worked across both the private sector and
Hmm.
in the federal space too. Like we just
Yeah.
talked about, like your location to DC.
Yes.
How did those experiences kind of shape the way that you think about organizations and leadership?
Yeah. So like I said, I worked in the federal government, and then before then, I was in a couple of different other spaces. So I worked for some consulting companies and things like that. While the work was similar because it's HR and people work, it was very different in how these organizations approached it. In the federal government, there is a lot more regulations and in addition to the HR regs, right? So there's just federal government regulations and things you have to kind of do. And it's a little more boxy versus working in a private company where, there's a little bit more flexibility in the way that you do things. And so it taught me a lot in what I like and versus what I don't like in my approach to HR and, approach to people. But it also taught me a lot of structure too and what things really need to have more structure around it versus what things don't. So I was able to take a little bit from both sides and kind of make it into my own today.
Awesome. And that subject and that conversation of making it your own, right? I think it leads in really well, to the next discussion here of at what point did you start thinking about building something on your own, right? You've been in HR for 20 plus years and I know we've talked, but I'll let you tell the story, but it's like, that shift happened for you
Yeah.
and it happened fairly quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. And, I wish that I had some magical aha moment to say, hey, this was it. And I know I'm gonna, start my own business, but it was not that at all. Like you mentioned, accidental CEO. I was, working. I had just had my oldest daughter. So she was on, and my father at the time was really sick. And so I had come to this crossroads um, in my career and at work where I just didn't have the time to be there for my family. And my time wasn't my own. And so I talked to my husband about it and I just kind of left my job. I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't have any plans, but I knew I needed to be there for my family. So that was the push or the shift that got me out of where I was. And then from there, I said, okay, well, like, what am I going to do next? And I applied for a few jobs. I didn't hear anything back. And so I took that as a sign that I need to kind of do something on my own. And so I kind of set some things up, but not really very seriously. And it wasn't until I think probably about 3 months after I left my job, I had someone reach out and say, hey, Tiffany, you do HR, right? And I said, yeah, I do. And so she's like, well, I need someone to help me with a couple of projects. And I was like, okay, great. And I just kind of fell into it. So I was doing the work, but then also learning or trying to learn how to do the work of a CEO. And then I just kept getting more and more business, picked up really fast. And within those, I'll say 3 to 4 months, I was getting like different clients from word of mouth. And which was great. And I was just kind of taking everything on. I'm like, sure, I'll do this, I'll do that. I was really busy once I pressed like the go button on the business. So again, I kind of fell into it.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. We've talked to a lot of CEOs and founders on this show, and we've been in our careers for, 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how many entrepreneurs say the same thing, that they weren't out to start a company. They really became they saw a hole or they had a need, like you and your
Yeah.
kid and your daughter and your dad, and being closer to family. Like, that accidental CEO we're starting to see more of a theme being woven. And it's just that creativity of like, I need to support my family,
Yeah.
but I also need to have that flexibility. What does accidental CEO mean to you specifically?
It means to me that there wasn't a plan or anything premeditated about it. It was something that just happened and I went with the flow. And so and operating in this space, like I said, I've been in HR for a long time, but I feel like that same intern again in certain instances because I feel like I am learning how to navigate this space from a completely different angle. It's very different working for someone and working in established organizations, and then all of a sudden now you are building your own organization while still working and supporting clients. So it's a very just kind of a go with the flow and like sink or swim type of things. It's a little mix of all of that. Yeah, that's how I would describe it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's a process, right? To
Mhm.
figure all of that out. But I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, what was it that surprised you the most about shifting from I am an HR person,
Mhm.
oh, and that has been your career, to now I am this entrepreneur, CEO? What was the biggest surprise in making that shift for you?
I think, Sean, I think the biggest surprise for me now that I think about it is how much I was capable of. And so I didn't, working for someone else, it's right, here's what you're supposed to do, here's your job description, very black and white, very, okay, very easy. And then coming into the space where you are payroll, you are
Hmm.
the boss, you are the marketer, you are sales. Coming into it at first, it was a little scary because I didn't know what I was doing and still don't
Mhm.
always know everything. But then to know that I am capable of more than just HR, it's like, hey, I have these other skills that
Yeah.
I either was able to kind of brush off, and or skills that I didn't even know existed. And so I'm just kind of like, wow, I can do, a lot of things, a lot of
Yeah,
Right.
you
things.
can.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I mean, it's almost a little bit of self-empowerment, like
Yes.
you
Yes.
mentioned, like going into a business that, had the four walls, had all these systems in place. Usually probably by the time they're bringing in a full-time HR person, they've been
Right.
around for a while,
Yes.
and they have a clear path for what they want you to do, what your job role is. Yeah, and you're right. When you step out on your own, you don't have that. You are the person that's having to invent all that. And so it's like, not only are you inventing the product, you're having to sell the product, market the product, you know, you know, search service where product is, but it can
Yeah.
definitely be very stressful. And you find out really quickly um, how quickly you can grow in certain areas, and also I think some deficits that we have.
Absolutely.
We've talked on this show about like how accounting was our first hire,
Mhm.
and I'm really glad we did that. And we are a lot of first entrepreneurs, small business. We're a lot of times we're their first marketing team, and I can
Yeah.
imagine that as a fractional HR person, you might be the first HR person that this person has ever had. So you're taking all that experience and being able to really pour into these small businesses who don't have that expertise. So talk to us about what that first year was like, because I'm sure there was a lot of growing pains that you had, but what was it really like strategically, emotionally? Kind of dig in a little bit on there.
Yeah. So if I'm being totally honest, I would say the first year was so exciting. And it was exciting in a sense because it was new. It was something I had never, a space I had never been in before. And like I mentioned before, had a lot of different clients, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is great." Like I was busy, I was doing different things, meeting new people. And so I really really enjoyed being able to do different things and not having like the same day every day. On the flip side of that, it was a lot to juggle. And because I was new, I said, like I mentioned, I said yes to everyone and yes to everything. Okay, sure. Yes, I can do that. Sure, no problem. Like I said yes to
Yeah.
everything. And
Yes.
so then while it was exciting, I found myself very overwhelmed. And I'm like, okay, like how am I supposed to juggle all of this? Because, it was just me. And I think probably in my first year, I probably had, I want to say at a time, maybe like six clients.
Mhm.
And so, and it, six clients, me being their in house HR. So I'm doing that for six clients. And again, I just jumped into this. So it was exciting because it was new and fresh, but it was a lot. It was a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. So I'm thinking here is, as it's going through, right? You started your company in 2019. You get those first 6 clients. It's going really
Yeah.
well. You've got all that excitement. And right as you're wrapping up year 1 and so excited, we all see March 15th happen of 2020, right? And so I'm curious, like, especially like wrapping up year 1 right at the height of COVID, right? Like,
Yeah.
your April, I think, was your kind of starting year. So March is
Hmm.
that right at that wrap up for you. How did that impact you as a founder and somebody who's building a business? Like, talk us through like, what that moment looked like for you and how you pivoted and how you decided to keep going.
Yeah. So that was a very interesting time. So, for a few reasons. I remember specifically in March, and I remember doing a training for an organization. And I think a few days after that is when everything just kind of shut down. And so I didn't, I had one client that cut ties. They were like, hey, like, we're going to have to let you go. And because it was so much uncertainty. And so everything shifted to, being fully remote at the time, right? And, I had been working remote, but of course, like if clients needed me to be on site, I would be there as well. So everything shifted. No one quite knew what to do and how to navigate this new space, and especially with all of their people. So the clients that I did have, I was busy because they were trying to figure out, what do we do with our people? What are our new policies? How do we work now? Um, we're not coming to the office, or people are sick. Like, it was just so much happening. So I was still very busy. But it was nice to be it was nice to not only just be home, but that we were all in it together.
Mm-hmm.
And then on a
Yeah.
personal note, I was pregnant at the time. So I think in March I was 6 months pregnant. So
Wow.
at that point, it was very nice not to have to go out and travel and be in so many
Mm,
different spaces. So I really welcomed that hard stop that we all had to do during that
mhm,
time. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
quite the time for sure.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine as a mom also, like, just being 6 months pregnant and just be like, okay, everyone shut down. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Me and the couch and Netflix, we're gonna have some time, bring my laptop, do what the work I need to do,
Yeah.
and just shift and
Yeah.
realign, readjust, for
Yeah.
sure. So kind of thinking about like these hard lessons that you've had to learn through the first year. The first year it's the hardest. Something that I bet a lot of our listeners are relating to is the saying yes to everything, because you're still figuring it out. And we said yes to a lot of things that I'm looking back on and I'm like, I can't believe we said yes to that. But
Yeah.
we did, and we did it, and it was fine. We learned through it.
Yeah.
But what are some of the hardest lessons that you had to learn, just over the years that you've been in business?
Yeah. I think some of the hardest lessons, like I said, not saying yes, or rather saying no. Admittedly, that's been a lesson I've had to learn even up until maybe like last year, if I'm
Yeah.
being like totally
Yeah.
honest. And not just saying no to just, any type of, client, but just also like the people that you work with. And it's like really knowing your capacity. And as much as I get excited about things and I'm like, yeah, this sounds great. I had to learn what I could really handle and how much of it I could handle. Also had to learn, it's so hard. I'm at a good place now, but it took me like up until last year to really learn like where my niche was,
mm,
because in saying yes to everything and everyone, I was saying yes to all kind of industries and organizations and like in places I just really didn't fit. And meaning me and the client I was working with, we were just not a good fit. And so I had to really accept that and own that and say, okay, Tiffany, like this is your people, respectfully, right? Like they're not your people and that's okay. Like you can't be HR to everybody.
yeah,
And I think that was like the really like the big pill I had to swallow and just be like, okay, all right, I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. They're not going to be mine, and it's okay.
yeah,
So just accepting that piece. That's
yeah.
the
I
hard.
think that every business owner goes through it, right? Unless they just come
Yeah.
into it knowing exactly the niche they're going to fill and do all that. It's like you go through that process of like, okay, we take everything and then we realize, okay, that's not our cup of tea, right? And
Yeah.
you got to figure out, like you said, who are the clients I align with the most, and how do I set these boundaries for
Yeah.
myself, around protecting not just your energy and your time, right, but your business, right? So I'm curious, like, talk a little bit more about learning those lessons and, as you were dropping clients or, and going, okay, they're not my people, right? For
Yeah.
one reason or another, we just don't align. But talk to me about that, what that process looked like for you and how you sort of worked through it. Cause I think every business owner struggles with it.
Yeah. So one, I will say this. Every client that I knew we weren't in alignment with, I knew it up front.
Mm,
I could tell, I could feel it up front, but I always said, okay, you know what? Well, maybe this one's going to be different. And every time I did not go with my gut, it ended up not being a good fit. So that I do want to say that at first. So, but then once, I signed anyway, we're working together. And honestly, I've had clients who have said to me, like, hey, this is not going to work. So it's been both ways. Like if I'm being like totally honest. And so I think I had to, or I've learned to work through it as far as like I did my best with the client and did my best work. But again, I think it's just that acceptance piece of it, which sometimes, right, it's hard. Like if a client says, hey, like this is not going to work, it's like someone breaking up with you before you break up with them. And you kind of like, I wish I did it first because like you already knew, but then there's a piece where it's like you have relief, but then you're like, man, is this a reflection on me? Is this a reflection on like the work that I did, but just kind of, taking that time to really just say, okay, Tiffany, you did your best. And it's okay. It just didn't work. And that's fine. So I think for me, a lot of it is just kind of working through the not taking everything just personally, which is really hard as a business owner, like not to do, right? Because this is you. This is a reflection of you. This is your baby. And I'm sure you all get it too,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
so yeah, so I think just kind of just working through that piece kind of and I'm I learned how to work through it quicker and not let it make me stagnant or kind of stop me from continuing the work. But yeah, it's a lot of self-work that I've had to do.
It really is, man. So much of what you said, I feel like we should go get coffee and talk about this on a
I mean,
deeper
let's go.
level
Let's go,
because
Kelly.
we'll go meet in DC. I
Yes.
am sure there's 35 coffee shops that would be
There are
quiet that we should go talk.
zillions. Yes.
Man, I feel that to the core. When those clients, especially ones that you really like and you think
Yeah.
things are going really well, or maybe they are and they just, like, we had a client step off last year. Amazing. Loved her to pieces. She
Yeah.
was, I said she was the best boss. She was a business coach.
Okay.
We loved working with her. And
Yeah.
man, when she wanted to shift from marketing, she's like, I have tons of leads. What I
Yeah.
need is sales help. And she really just was not closing those sales. And so she had to shift her money from marketing to sales. And I was just like, I'm so sad. Can we still talk? And she's like, we better.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we've maintained a friendship, but honestly, she needed to do that because it was best for her business. And
Right.
that alignment piece, oh my gosh, man, I feel that. But you
Yeah.
are right on. And I think so many of our listeners and our audience that hears that and is an entrepreneur of, like, especially like service-based businesses, it's hard. It really, really is. It's a mindset shift to not take that personal
Yeah.
and to really keep moving forward. So what lessons, I talked a little bit about that mindset that you had to build up, and I'm sure that's a constant thing that you're always having to kind of realign, adjust. What are some other lessons that you're still actively applying today that you've learned in your business?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest lessons I'm learning is, and I think Shawn mentioned it, but just about boundaries, not just saying yes or no to certain clients, but the clients that I have said yes to, okay, what are my boundaries? And because I think being in a service based industry and business, and I'm in HR, so I want to help the people. And there are always so many things happening. I mean, so many, right? And so, but I also have to make sure, like, I have to be my best self in order to help my clients. And so I have put a lot of things on the back burner for myself, like for Tiffany and then for my business to, at a detriment to make sure that my clients have everything that they need. And so then once I've done this and I got a gold star from them, I found myself in a situation where it's like, "Oh, well, I didn't even do this for myself, or I didn't, I'm not even thinking about myself in the same way or my business in the same way that I'm thinking about for my clients." And so working through boundaries and saying, hey, like, I'm not going to respond to emails after this time, or I'm not going, these are the days that I work. And it's so hard. Or even, taking time off. That is, my gosh, like I've gotten so much better at it, but just learning how to no, really unplug and take time off. Because I found I was on a vacation. I did something with my kids, I think probably last year, and I can't remember where we went right now, but I was doing both and taking my laptop with me. And, here we're like on vacation and doing things, but then I'm like, hold on, and mommy's sending an email, or mommy's doing this. And that trip right there, I was like, okay, this has to stop. I can't do both. Because one, I'm not being a good mom to the kids because I'm I'm physically there, but my mind, everything else, my energy is not. And then, so I don't want that for my kids. I don't want them to have to grow up and remember, yeah, I remember on all those vacations, mommy, you were always working. Like, I don't want that to be the memory. So really having just to set those boundaries so that my professional and personal life are balanced somewhat.
I build a business to live my life the way I want to live it.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
how do I start interspersing all these pieces in to create the life I want?
Absolutely.
You had a 20-year career in HR before you jumped to your own business, right?
Yeah. So it taught me all things HR. Like I'm very confident in what I do and what I offer. I can do HR in my sleep. Someone brings something to me, I can tell you exactly what's going to happen. I have seen all kinds of people, all kinds of scenarios, all kinds of things. And so, it's prepared me in a sense that nothing really catches me off guard or surprises me because I haven't seen it all. I'm not going to say, "Oh, I've seen it all, I've done it all." I have not, but I know how to manage it. I don't get overwhelmed. And what it didn't teach me. So I have people skills, but having people skills from the perspective of a business owner is different.
Yeah.
And I say that in a sense because I didn't really know how to talk business because I worked in HR. And
Hmm.
so then I found myself in spaces and in rooms where I didn't know how to speak like a CEO.
Yeah.
And I struggled with that. I still do at times, but I didn't know, the lingo. I didn't know what certain things meant, how to connect the dots. And so, yeah, I again felt like I was starting from ground zero. I had no idea what anything meant like in the business world. I just
Yeah.
knew HR.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. So we're getting close to the end here, but I wanted to give you an opportunity. Share with us what you do with grounding work.
Yeah. So I have the pleasure of being able to partner with organizations and come in and help them make the workplace just a better place. We spend so much time at work, and I've always been a firm believer that you shouldn't be unhappy at work or be in a space where where you work isn't like the best place. So I'm able to come in and partner with different CEOs and leadership to help not only like the culture, of the workspace. And so with culture, that's, employee engagement, just making sure people helping leaders to really be able to understand their people, to listen to their people so that they know like what's going on with them. And then that way they know how to really focus on the business. And then also I help with policy. I'm really big on kind of helping set things up. And
Hmm.
so that's why I work with specifically now like startups and I call them start overs. So if an organization is in transition, then I can come in and help because we're starting from the ground up, hence like grounding work.
Yeah.
And so we're setting the foundation. So helping you put your HR systems in place, like I said, policy, compliance, onboarding, offboarding, like what all that looks like, and just really doing it in a very humanizing way. So
That's
yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. And, we talked about a little bit at the beginning that HR is that scary word, right? Like
I
we've all been in
know.
corporate America, and done it. And, we hear HR and we're just like,
I know. I
so I
know.
love that I love that you're doing it in a way to connect, right? And
Yeah.
to not make it this scary thing,
Yeah.
right? That so many people think it can be, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for people who want to learn more about you and what you do and how you run your business and how you help them, how can
Yeah.
they get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love LinkedIn, so you'll find me there. So my page name is linkedin.com/in/tsdeans. I'm also my website, groundingwork.co. You can find me there. And I mean pretty much everywhere, but LinkedIn, that's my jam. I love it. So
Nice.
I'm there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, everyone who's listening, definitely go look up Tiffany. Today's been a fantastic conversation, and I
It
thank you so
has.
much for your time and your insight
Thank
and,
you.
just being so transparent with us about what those early years looks like. So thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Thank you, Shawn. Thank you, Kelly. This has been great. I look forward to the next time.
Awesome. Love to have you on again at some point. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.